The history of bourbon begins in the late 18th century in the United States, primarily in the state of Kentucky. While the exact origins are debated, many credit the Scotch-Irish and Scottish immigrants for bringing distillation techniques to the region. Late 18th century or early 19th century, settlers in Kentucky began distilling a grain spirit using locally available ingredients, particularly corn, which was abundant in the region. This early American whiskey was different from Scotch whiskey, which primarily used barley. Early 19th century, the name bourbon is said to have originated in Kentucky. It's often attributed to Bourbon County, Kentucky, but this is debated. What is clear is that the term became associated with Kentucky whiskey. 1823, distillers in Kentucky began to refine the production of bourbon whiskey, employing practices like aging the spirit in new charred oak barrels. This process gave bourbon its distinct caramel color and flavors. 1860s, the Civil War and subsequent Reconstruction era disrupted bourbon production, but it rebounded in the late 19th century. Late 19th century or early 20th century, bourbon whiskey gained popularity in the United States and internationally, becoming known for its unique flavor profile. Prohibition era 1920 to 1933. Prohibition in the United States led to the closure of many distilleries, but some survived by producing medicinal whiskey. Some bourbon distilleries transitioned to making other products, such as medicinal whiskey, for survival during this period. Post-Prohibition rebirth. After the repeal of Prohibition, bourbon production resumed and experienced growth. 1950s-1960s, bourbon became a symbol of American culture and was associated with the Mad Men era of cocktail culture. Classic cocktails like the Old Fashioned and the Manhattan featured bourbon prominently. Late 20th century, the bourbon industry faced challenges, including changes in consumer preferences. However, it experienced a resurgence in the late 20th century and early 21st century, with craft distilleries and small batch bourbons gaining popularity. 21st century, bourbon whiskey continues to thrive, with a resurgence in interest in traditional methods, unique expressions, and limited releases. It's celebrated both in the United States and internationally. Today, bourbon is a quintessential American spirit, known for its rich, sweet, and often oaky flavor. It enjoys a global following, with connoisseurs and collectors seeking out rare and aged expressions. Kentucky remains at the heart of bourbon production, with distilleries offering tours and tastings to visitors interested in the history and craftsmanship behind this iconic American whiskey.